Hey everyone, it's Kristi with our Rockin' New Year's Eve. Not really quite so rockin', because after I made that video, I was really tired and took a nap and woke up and realized that I'm not feeling all that great. So I'm gonna have a cozy night in, a cozy New Year's with my dad here instead of a big party outdoors. By the way, I should say before we get started, there is every possibility that you will hear explosions in my background, and that's because people are already starting to practice with their fireworks here in Cologne. And so as it gets to closer to 10 o'clock my time, it might start to pick up, but don't get alarmed. It's not gunfire or any bad thing. It's people just getting a little too excited about their midnight celebrations. And as in last month, I have Tom with me here today.
Hello.
Hey. So we were going to just get a little bit of a catch up, and then we've decided that we're going to go through my facepalm moments of the week together to keep the focus of the conversation moving forward, and also so the people who jump in to watch it live if they're not Packer fans, they don't feel excluded. So Tom, did you have a generally pleasant holiday time?
Yeah, I got a chance to spend a couple days with my son. He lives about 100 miles away, and so we got a chance to have a good time, exchange presents, and it was just wonderful. I think last time we talked, I had made a big turkey, and I got it right because I read the fucking manual. This time I got a big ass ham, and I made it right because I read the FM, and so I've been eating that for a few days. Like I say, I had time with my son. The weather was nice. It got a little skim of snow before Christmas, and then we got about 8 inches of snow a couple days ago. So it's white, and it's pleasant. It's pleasant. I had a good time. You?
Yeah, the winter was very nice. So we wrapped up. My dad arrived. We hit quite a lot of Christmas markets, and we hit, I think, out of the 8 I wanted to hit, we got to 6. And so that's pretty good, and spent a lot of time with some just friends catching up before they left to go off to see their families or go off for their holidays. And yeah, it was, I think this year more than ever, I really got that feeling of maybe a bit more of the Roman Saturnalian or the kind of the pagan tradition of being more in touch with the earth, and just because I was on holiday for the whole week leading up to Christmas rather than taking it between Christmas Eve and New Year's. Oh, did you hear that? I don't know if you heard that. Background. That's, yeah, people, fireworks.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year early. Somewhere it's New Year, right? But just the days getting really short, and then having all the lights come up and everything looking really cozy indoors. And then there's a fashion here for people to put these big paper mache stars that are intricately cut and lit from the inside in their front windows. So as you walk down the streets here in Germany, people have the traditional like ring of lights, or string of lights, I should say, or they have these stars up, and it's already dark by 4:30, and so it feels and because it hasn't been very cold, it feels very warm and cozy. And but I'm also thinking, I just want it to start to get to be summer. I just wanted the days to get longer instead of shorter and shorter. So finally, when that sort of 21st, 22nd hit, I felt, yeah, now we're kind of on the other side of the cycle. Now we're going to be coming back around, and the days will be getting longer. So I felt very much like awareness of passing through that year, like coming out of that end and starting a new year, and not traditionally, not as we've observed it here on the 1st, 31st and the 1st, but more on the calendar, the solstice of it. And it was a very nice kind of cozy feeling, because I think after I became an out atheist, my relationship to Christmas, I still enjoyed celebrating the Yule log and the tree and a lot of the songs that are not even the religious songs I find beautiful, but the secular songs. And so kind of figuring out how I celebrated that holiday. And here with my dad, we ended up being I don't have an oven, so we can't make really complicated meals. I think we had Mexican, we had tacos on New Year's, on Christmas Eve, and we had steak.
Christmas tacos.
On Christmas Day. Yes.
The very thing.
But it was low key, and instead of like exchanging presents, we went and I made a film of him and I at one of the Christmas markets, and edited it into a video for like a video postcard for just my family members. So yeah, I think it was just a really lovely, pleasant time.
Are you going to do a video about the Christmas market for like you did last year?
I have it filmed. I've just not had time to make it. So I did
Okay.
do a whole bunch of recording, and I did want to expand myself in terms of, yeah, so I wanted to make something for my viewers. But I'm also like, I'm behind on the 1,500 sub celebration video where I was going to sing and play guitar for the first time on my channel. And I've got two Karen Armstrong lectures prepped and ready to go, and this facepalm moment. So my problem is I have a full-time job. If I didn't have a full-time job, I could get all the videos I needed to get done.
There you go. I mean, the solution is obvious. We just quit.
Yes,
Quit your job and do YouTube full time.
Pour myself into this. Well, sometime maybe, yeah, it will become a transition between where my emphasis lie. But yeah, and this evening, are you a quiet New Year's Eve for you?
Speaking of fireworks, the village where I live in a village, oddly enough. It's called a village. It's not a town or anything like that. The village has a fireworks store, which you would not imagine, but it does. And so, and it's open the 2 days around before and after New Year's. So I expect that there's going to be a lot of fireworks tonight too here, and it'll be fun. It'll be a little bit, loud. Sometimes they go pretty late at night with pretty consistent loud stuff.
Yeah, but, right through to like 12:30 in the evening or in the morning.
Yeah, oh no, sometimes they'll go to 2 or 3 in the morning.
Oh, that's a little too late.
Oh yeah.
Even Cologne, you wouldn't get that.
Yeah. Well, you're civilized. We're
doing fireworks.
Yeah, exactly. That's more like some people here just go a little bit nuts.
Yes. Well, maybe if I'm up that late, what I can do is figure out a way, because you can sort of see the cathedral from where I live. Either that or I can go downstairs in my pajamas and put on some boots and just record a little bit of the mayhem in the distance. But I already have a video up with the fireworks, so I don't think people need to see that again. So you ready to do some facepalm moments with me?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
I have my oven glove right here, so I won't hurt myself too badly.
Sounds great. All right, so I've got it all set up as on a PowerPoint presentation because I'm so organized. And can you see that all right on your screen?
Yep.
All right. So here we go. So I'm just gonna, this invisible window you guys can't see, I'm now dragging something out of the way. So
facepalm moments of the week.
Yay! Oh, I had a guest singer. That's so exciting. All right. So
next time you get somebody who can actually sing. That
was perfect. Note for note.
Much better.
I'm so impressed that you sang it. Next time we'll do it together. That's what we'll do. All right, so I saw this story and I thought it was just crazy. It's Indian TV, and there's a holy guy who tried to kill an atheist with his black magic. And people who want can go and watch the video from this link. Basically says if you don't believe in superstitions, black magic, exorcism, and witchcraft, what happens next will leave you rolling on the floor laughing. Check out how this holy man in India attempts to kill a skeptic. The man tries to drop the skeptic unconscious on live TV with black magic power. He starts with chanting some vague chants. Other unfair means he uses was like pressing on the man's head, throwing water on him, brandishing an open knife. But after a while, when all the black magic techniques failed, the holy man claimed that the man was protected by his gods. But the skeptic claims to be an atheist.
Of course, but of course, we all know atheists really believe in God. God or God.
Deep down.
Deep down, yeah. Or Satan.
Yeah, I think, at least this guy had the courage, the holy man, to have the courage to try to put his money where his mouth was and go on television. Whereas, I don't think any Benny Hinn person or anyone like that would, any of the preachers that are con men here in the state or in the States or in the, North America or anywhere else would put themselves on the line like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember Tonight Show, Johnny Carson, he had a couple of psychics on the spoon bending guy, Uri Geller.
Yeah.
And a couple other people that he had on, and he would have Randy, the amazing Randy, would set up the the trick so that the skeptic, so that the psychic wouldn't be able to use his regular tricks, and failed universally.
Yeah.
So I can imagine that this holy man was that video is going to be very much like that, where yeah, it doesn't, oddly enough, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
The spirits are shy when video comes up.
Yes, when you're actually expected to do things under reasonable experimental conditions. I think
Right.
there's a song by Tim Minchin that's entitled "If you open your mind too much, your brain will fall out." Subtitled "Take My Wife," and he sings about all
Yeah,
of these
right.
things. Yeah, people should check
Take,
that out.
take it up. And my wife.
Yes. All right, now this is a dick move, because I saw this and it clearly is obviously the kind of thing that we point out about hypocrisy.
Right.
Atheists in, I want to say it was Texas, yes, had erected two signs, adopt a highway signs. They were the people taking care of it, and it was erased with spray paint with the words "I love God, I love Christ," and "Christ" superimposed upon the atheist message. And apparently, in order to catch the culprits, they've now had to raise money to mount cameras on the signs so that they won't be destroyed anymore, because Christians are so tolerant that they won't tolerate the existence of atheists.
Yeah. Try to do a good thing, and you don't. This is the wages of trying to do a good thing. They don't get no good deed goes unpunished. Would it be karmic justice is if they had a deer trail cam set up that caught these people, because I'm pretty sure these Texas Christians are probably also hunters that would probably use, a lot of them use trail cams anyway to set up their hunting, and to be caught by one would be, I
Yeah, I
don't know.
wonder, would you
I
lose your
think
right to have a gun if you were firing your gun as vandalizing? Isn't that some sort of misuse of your firearm? I don't
well,
know.
I don't know. In Wisconsin, it's just target practice. You go out in the sticks, and all the stop signs are just riddled with bullets. I suspect you would get into some sort of trouble, but everybody does it.
Yeah, which is really, really sad. So yes, in a nation that supposedly prides itself, or people who think it's a Christian nation that gave them freedom of religion and freedom of speech, some people just can't tolerate other people being as free as they are.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's a dick move.
Yeah, it is a dick move. Oh, hey, here's one that you might have personal knowledge on.
Well, just what I've read, things like the image that you're showing right now is familiar. I've seen it before.
Yeah, so this is from a WBAW Green Bay station that I grew up watching. So the Freedom from Religion Foundation has questioned whether a GOP legislator used state resources improperly in order to make a Christmas video in which he encourages people to become Christians. Representative Scott Allen of Waukesha posted the video to the Wisconsin Assembly GOP's YouTube channel on the 18th of December. In it, he tells anyone who isn't a Christian to consider the hope offered by the Prince of Peace, and quoted several verses from the Bible. FFRF sent a letter to Assembly Speaker Robin Voss complaining about the overt proselytizing. They note that it is unclear whether or not state resources went toward producing or distributing the video, and included a request for all production-related documents. So yeah, was this much of a kerfuffle in the media?
I don't spend a lot of time listening to local media, but I saw it on a number of Facebook posts from people that I know, and groups that, across the nation were concerned about it. But Robin Voss isn't going to do anything because he's Robin Voss, and he's a Republican, and they get to do what they want.
Yeah, because they run everything, including, as Rachel Maddow pointed out, eliminating the Government Accountability Board and turning it into a partisan hack job so that Scott Walker doesn't have to worry about anyone investigating his wrongdoing.
Right. And they're in the process right now of changing civil service in Wisconsin, which was the gold standard for 100 years in the nation. They're changing that now to be more crony friendly.
Yeah, they want to race to basically, the kind of worst of Southern politics.
Right.
All the things that Bob LaFollette fought against.
Right. They're trying to make it Mississippi with snow up here.
Yeah, yeah.
Mississippi.
Mississippi. Yeah, that's actually, yeah. If that's not already coined, I think we should coin it right here. That
Okay.
Wisconsin's Mississippi.
Well, let's claim it and name it.
All right, we got it.
It's ours.
Copyright protection.
It's ours.
Yes, we'll split the
Trademark
proceeds.
registered.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. You know, if an atheist member of the legislature had used time to go on screen and say, I want you to consider the end of the year as a time to consider giving up your silly superstitions and base all of your views in evidence and logic and reason, Christians would freak out. Of course.
Oh, man. Oh, man. I long for the day.
When we can proselytize in the reverse, when you have people in the corner going, give up your religion, or knocking on your door. Have you thought about becoming an atheist?
Well, I don't know about
about
becoming an atheist, but in terms of, wouldn't it be nice if in the legislature and as citizens of Wisconsin, we went back to, I don't know, thinking and data?
Yeah. Because
we were smart once.
Yeah, we used to, evidence, based policy decisions as opposed to, sorry, Mr. Koch, what did you want passed next?
Yes, yes.
All right.
Or even worse than that. Here, I did this already. Is this all right with you? You know, I read your mind ahead of time, and I did things that you didn't even ask me to do because I know your mind so well.
Or they just go to ALEC and just everything that ALEC does, you just pass that in the cookie cutter. That way you get to federal government without actually having a federal government. You get all the same laws in all the states because that's what the Koch brothers have paid for.
Well, it saves all like writing and thinking and putting in words.
Local control, those kinds of things that they say that's why they can't have federal policies and everything be the same.
Right.
Yeah. All right, so then I had a couple stories here on church and state issues in the UK and the US because I'm trying to be more international in my facepalm moments.
Good.
And this one comes out of the Herald in Scotland. That leading Catholic Church figure urges Scots seculars to set up their own schools, which sounds like kind of a good idea, but it's really a back and forth about the role of the state in terms of where it should play in education. So I'll just read through this really quick. A senior Scottish Catholic Church figure has called for schools with an atheist ideology to be set up if demand from parents exists. Now we should remember that the British population now is majority non-religiously affiliated, and there's like 37 or 47% that identify themselves as Christians. So the church's official spokesperson, Peter Kearney, said secular humanist schools may be needed to satisfy society's desire to cater for all beliefs. The intervention by Mr. Kearney comes on the back of a push by parents in Glasgow for the country's first Muslim school, a plan supported by the Catholic Church. But Vice Chair of the Scottish Secular Society, Robert Canning, said champions of faith schooling were merely seeking the choice to use other people's taxes to promote a religion to their children. He added, those who do not wish their taxes to be used for the promotion of religion get no choice in the matter, while members of belief groups without sufficient numbers to gain their own schools are denied the choice they would prefer. The Scottish Secular Society supports choice in raising children, but hold that the state education system cannot be expected to supply whatever some parents might choose while denying others. If all schools were neutral on religion and atheism, promoting and opposing neither, they could all reflect cultural diversity by accepting all pupils on equal terms. Whereas some want diversity of schools, the Scottish Secular Society wants schools of diversity. Nicely said.
I like that. That makes perfect sense to me. Of course, there is that. Historically, you have in England and I guess Scotland, you have the history of schools being run primarily by the Church, Church of England, in England, and probably the Scottish Presbyterian Church in Scotland, and then other faith churches. And the good thing about that, and one of the reasons I think why Britain is becoming more and more secular is that they require religious education, which means that as it gets more, as they broaden out the education to more and more religious concepts, people start looking and saying, well, this other church that they're teaching me about doesn't make much sense to me, and maybe mine doesn't make much sense either. So let me think about this some more.
Yeah, I think
So
when I talked to Steve Cattell, and on the interview, he's a British scholar looking at religion and politics. And there is he said, the thing about that you have in the States that we don't have in Europe on these kinds of issues is you have a clear law. You have a separation of church and state, whereas you do, even though you have, let's say, less intensity of religion and less religiosity in a place like, the UK and Scotland, England, and Wales, it is primarily, the churches do have an elevated role. The Church
right,
of England has, there are seats for the bishops in the House of Lords,
right.
and a lot of these schools, as you mentioned, are faith schools, and they are not required to. Oh, actually, one of the other stories that we'll get onto kind of is dealing with this. The population now being non-religious, it's catching up with the government a little bit. So they don't have the legal basis that the Freedom from Religion Foundation has to go and challenge it. It's kind of, it's weird in that in the United States it's happened in law but not in culture.
Right.
And in UK, and I guess also it's an increasingly extent perhaps in Ireland as well, because they have a lot of church-based schools there, and there's some increasing conflict that I've covered in Facepalm Moments, but let's focus on the UK. It's
Mm-hmm.
culturally more secular, but
Mm-hmm.
but legally quite religious.
Right.
So it's an
Which
interesting,
is odd.
yeah, it's like a political science experiment.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw there's a probably famous video of Dawkins going to a Muslim school in I think London and talking to the Muslim kids about science, and it was just horrible. The kids just had they all of them, universally. Well, he asked who here does not believe in evolution, and they kind of looked at each other to make sure that they were all on the same page, and they all
Yeah.
raised their hands and said, "No, I don't. None of us believe in that. None of us believe in that." And that was very sad.
Yeah, and shocking because it's science. I mean, if you want to
Right.
go anywhere, and I agree with Dawkins that for a long time, Islam was this, like the Islamic cities were the center of learning and
Right.
education, and that they've fallen behind on that, and it doesn't seem to be very important, for the religious leaders to go back to those glory days.
Yeah.
The
It's been. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the last thing I was going to say is I learned about something on a BBC program once called The Great Translation, and I really have not been able to find any other reference to it, sort of looking through the internet. But it was a Muslim scholar on the BBC talking about the important role that Muslim scholars played in taking Greek texts and translating them into Arabic to preserve them, and
Right.
then how those texts then made it back into Europe after the Dark Ages and were translated from Arabic or from Greek or whatever. They were preserved and brought back into the European culture and
Right.
knowledge. And so, yeah, they were at the forefront of all of that, of maintaining that knowledge, and algorithms and algebra and geometry, and alchemy. All those al words come right out
Right.
of the Arabic language. And it's sad to see that that part of their heritage isn't the kind of thing that when they talk about going back to the glorious days of Islam, I don't really hear that being included in that discussion.
Yeah. Well, Neil deGrasse Tyson has several times talked about that and mentioned that from about 800 to 1,000 or 1,100, that was that period you're talking about, the golden age of Arab or Muslim scholarship, and something like 3/4 of all the stars that are named are Arabic names because of that.
Mm-hmm.
They had naming rights because they
Got
were
there
at the
first.
forefront. They got there first, and I think the guy he blames for that is Al-Ghazali, who is a Muslim scholar who decided that math was of the devil, numbers were of the devil, and he is looked at now, as I understand it, as sort of the founder of modern Muslim theology. And so he's looked at as sort of a saint by a great number of Muslims, and yet his activities sort of ended that golden age, and it's very sad. Tyson said, "Well, where would he be if that had never happened? If they had continued the advances, we would be, we'd probably be on Mars 100
already.
years ago.
Yeah, I think the worst thing about the thing that angers me most about religious ignorance is the way that it destroys intellectual potential in human beings. And
Right,
it's also the reason why I hate, the oppression of women, because you've got
right.
half the population, and yeah, not every person out there is going to be an Einstein, but why dismiss somebody who could be an Einstein because she has a uterus instead of testes? That's
Or
just stupid. I mean,
or
it's
Madame
inefficient.
Curie.
Yes, yeah, and there's so many, and not just in the sciences, but in art and in literature, and just the full human potential that could be realized and improved or elevated or augmented in some way,
Hmm.
if you weren't committed to the idea that girls shouldn't be educated because they're just going to have babies anyway.
Yeah, or the first Mrs. Einstein, who apparently did most of the math for his theories of relativity.
Mm. Yeah,
So,
sometimes the silent women who are part of the team. Yeah, like the woman who was
right.
involved with the discovery of DNA. Yeah. So, but we're kind of getting far afield. So let's
Yep.
move on.
Sorry.
Because no, that was fine. I mean, it was a lovely talk. I mean, we have an hour to fill. There's only like 10 stories, so we kind of need to pad this out. Don't tell the
Okay.
audience. Don't tell the
I
audience.
I can. Well, I think you blew that one. I and I can certainly chat.
Okay, well,
But
the next story ties into the one that I just did, and it's the Conservatives now are in power in the UK, and there's a bit of pushback from the more traditional Christians as to, I think, the reality of what the society is becoming. So this story comes from the Telegraph in the UK, and I'll just read this out. I'll try to be quick. Schools must teach pupils that Britain is a Christian country and are entitled to prioritize the views of established religions over atheism, the Education Secretary has said. Nikki Morgan, the Education Secretary, today publishes new guidelines to non-faith schools, which makes clear that they do not need to give equal parity to non-religious views. It comes after humanists won a landmark High Court victory, which found that the Education Secretary had unlawfully excluded atheism from the school curriculum. Ms. Morgan is concerned that humanists are using the courts as part of a, quote, creeping ratchet effect, which will ultimately see primary schools forced to teach children about atheism, because they're not teaching them about
or
Christianity now. Sorry, aside.
or
I'll finish this off. A source close to Ms. Morgan said, quote, Nikki has had enough of campaign groups using the courts to try to enforce the teaching of atheism and humanism to kids against parents' wishes. That's why she's taking a stand to protect the right of schools to prioritize the teaching of Christianity and other major religions, unquote. In November, 3 families backed by the British Humanist Association won a victory at the High Court after challenging the government's new religious studies GCSE. Changes to the religious studies GCSE announced last Friday give priority to religious views, in particular Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, and Sikhism. So there you go, atheists, shut the hell up and don't try to get your own rights, basically.
or Janes either.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
No,
yes.
no Janes.
Nope, that's not on there. So yeah, this is why we have a benefit in the States when it comes to actually having a clear separation of church and state, because even though the High Court in the UK said that the Education Secretary was breaking the law by not including it, they're still basically using their positions of political power to marginalize atheism to benefit religious belief.
Yeah, where that is happening in the States, but it's happening against the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
And actually against court cases. So there's some similarities, actually.
Yeah, in terms of like the motivation and the attempts to use political power to marginalize unpopular views. I think in the U.S. it's actually here, at least they're including
Right.
it's Christianity, Catholicism, as if Catholicism isn't part of Christianity. But I think that meant Protestant Christianity versus Catholicism, Judaism, and the other ones.
Right.
Whereas in the States, it's more just focused on Christian privilege and only Christian privilege.
Exactly. Yeah, there was a survey that I read recently or saw a YouTube video about that was talking about that, and it was basically nearly everybody thought Christianity needed to be protected from government action, but most people thought that Islam and other religions and atheism did not have that same level of respect. So, you know, we have a long way to go to get to support our own constitution in that. Here in
Yeah,
the
we're
States.
failing in the schools. If you think that equality under the law means only one group gets to have freedoms and everybody else doesn't, then we're failing in our schools, basically.
Right.
And
But
this, I think, oh, go ahead, finish them. Yeah.
I'm just thinking the Satanic Temple is doing women's work on that here in the States, doing, you know, wherever they can to say, okay, we're going to do the Bible distribution. We're going to distribute a satanic coloring book, which is basically humanist. And they're in the Satanic Temple doing the statues.
Yeah.
Around where there's Ten Commandment statues, you get the Baphomets popping up, and I think there is pushback, but it's frustrating because we should be better than this, and we're not.
I would think there's a lot of parallels. Again, I see a lot of parallels with how various other civil rights movements have had to kind of get attention. First, they get the attention of the population, and then there's a normalization coming out and making it more normal to accept those views. So going all the way back to, you know, anti-slavery. Obviously, I don't think the United States did a very good job of fixing the structural problems that came after. Just because you made slavery illegal doesn't mean that now people suddenly have money and education, and and so we failed that way. But in terms of like women's movements, you had women out there basically saying, I want to wear pants and being mocked. I want to be able to vote and being mocked. I want equal pay in the workplace. But eventually, those attitudes over time do change. And then the civil rights movement, I think, we're still seeing the civil rights movement today with the Black Lives Matter taking up issues. I mean, just because it's not overt racism in law doesn't mean that it isn't racism in practice.
Right.
The LGBT community that really started to rally around civil rights, but I think obviously because of the historical event of HIV and AIDS that organized the community around health issues, and then that became legal issues, and then it became more of a rights issue. And I think atheists are doing the same. We kind of first have to get ourselves out there, and also not just atheists, but our allies in the LGBT community when it comes to attacking Christian privilege, our allies in the Satanist community in terms of First Amendment rights and the equality under the law, not attacking Christian privilege. I think we're an infantile movement, but that also means that we're really important in that trajectory of history, because we're the generation that are taking these issues up and really taking them and it's trying to normalize and mainstream non-belief. Yeah.
Well, I remember during the anti-war movement and the beginning in the second wave feminism, back when I was in college, and the thing that is always a little scary for at this point in the movements like atheism and third wave feminism is you get the pushback that's just intense, and you don't know, it feels like you're losing, or it feels like you could lose. And with Cruz and Trump and all this kind of stuff, that you get this incredible pushback from regressive folks, and it feels like you could lose. And I have to remind myself of Martin Luther King talking about the arc of history bends towards justice. It's long, though, and that's we're in the long part right now for some of this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. All right. Well, and on that note, let's move ahead.
Yes.
Because we're going to take up some more church and state fights. I found this on, I think, Christianity.com or something, a Christian Post, and it's about so there's been a back and forth in the courts about a 40-foot cross on public property, and most recently a federal court overturned a lower court's decision and allowed the cross to stay on the public property. So what is the core legal argument here is that they are saying that the cross is the people who support the cross saying it's not a religious symbol, it's just a historical symbol that has traditionally been used for service members. And people on the American Humanist Association's legal side is saying it's clearly a Christian symbol on government property and has the clear effect of endorsing religion. So this is going to get, I think, appealed now from the appellate court to a higher court. I don't know if that's going to be the Supreme Court or if it would be a state court. It's like the Fourth Circuit Court. So if it's a circuit court decision, then I assume that it's going to be would be appealed to the Supreme Court. And the question is, is a cross, when is a cross, and when is a cross not a cross? Or, it's like, who is it said sometimes a cigar, Freud, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. When is a cross religious and when is it not? And I think it's an interesting question, because for the purposes of law, I think it's going to be an important decision if it does go all the way up to the Supreme Court. Right.
Yeah, I think, geez, I don't know. When you have something that's historic, like the missions in California, as evil as they were in so many ways, they're historic. And if you have them set up as state or federal monuments of some sort with the crosses on there on the buildings, there is history there, and I understand that. I think similarly with some grave memorials or cemetery memorials have some of that history. But when you just have a big cross that is on public property and there's nothing else, because there have been atheists and Jewish and Native American traditional religions, and people from all kinds of different walks of life, Muslims that have also fought and died for the country. And if you have a cemetery or you have a memorial that only has a cross, it really doesn't represent the other people.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, I understand too that there's history behind it, and maybe at the time people just thought, oh well, everyone will count everyone under a cross, because that's kind of a Christian privilege way of looking at the world. Well, it's for everybody. A cross is for everyone. I was like, well, if it was a crescent moon, would you feel the same? If it was a pagan, if it was a symbol of 6 or 5 pointed pentagram, would you feel the same? So I think there is a problem where people, like the Red Cross, for instance, is a secular group. It has always been a secular group.
Right.
But then again, it doesn't have that. It's just more like a plus sign rather than a crossy kind of cross.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the end of the day, is it on public property paid for by the taxpayers? And does it, even if it historically was seen as non-religious, do people perceive it as religious today? And do they, see it as a big Christian symbol? Because that too matters, I think.
Yeah, I think it's the ongoing change in our culture of what we perceive and what we think of, how my eyes have been opened in a lot of ways. It's similar with, feminism. Well, why should you be upset if on TV all the women are, all the wives are the ones that know what the hell's going on, and the husbands are bumbling idiots? You're getting an equal treatment there. You're actually coming out ahead. But yeah, you treat people, you stereotype people.
Yeah, exactly.
And we start thinking, well, maybe people should be able to go into whatever field they want and get and be accepted for their capacities, not for their genders. You talked about the Red Cross, so you also have the Red Crescent, which is Muslim related. So there is a kind of a dichotomy there.
Yeah, but the Red Cross itself was actually never intended to be only, it was actually started as a secular group. And the Red Crescent then, because, it was developed in Europe and it was more seen on the battlefield, but it was never overtly Christian, like, say, the Salvation Army. It just happened. Yeah. So, but in that way I meant, All right, I think we've got that one. Oh, this was some good news. that I found, and this is just a local atheist dude who is going to give an invocation at a city meeting, and they were covering it. Here it was, you know, in the big city of Granville. I don't even know what state this is in, but Michigan, Granville, Michigan. Yeah, just over the lake. There we go. Stephen Belstra doesn't plan to invoke God when he gives the invocation at Monday night's city council meeting. The Granville man insisted he will suggest to city leaders that, quote, we don't turn toward faith or religion to guide government decisions, but rather goodwill toward all people in our community, unquote. He goes on to say, I don't expect controversy, and I'm not going to make any controversy, but non-religious people are the fastest growing religious group in the country, Bellister said by phone. I just want council members to think about everybody, because when they've been having pastors give invocations every meeting for years, they don't hear the other side of the coin. There's many people like myself in Granville who have a different belief system, unquote. Belstra said he approached the city about giving an invocation and that Mayor Steve Mass was receptive. Mass said Belstra this fall, quote, asked if he would be able to give the opening remark, and I said absolutely. I came to the conclusion after last year's Supreme Court ruling on prayer at government meetings that if we want to continue the practice of having invocations, we do need to be inclusive, and that we cannot exclude people who are non-believers, Mass said. I do think we need to be very inclusive and more diverse. So nice to go, way to go, Granville, Michigan.
Yeah, yeah. So it wasn't after, yeah, so the mayor actually asked him, well, after having been approached, but he actually asked him and said the right things rather than, all right, well, we'll give you this one shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's nice to see.
Yeah.
That's all we're asking for.
Good news. Yeah. If you're going to do it, if you absolutely need to have an invocation, let anybody do it.
Yeah. And to make it,
point of view.
to welcome people and not make a big deal out of it, or yeah, because we've seen more antagonistic reactions when these requests have been made in other stories I've covered in the past.
Yeah, like council members walking out.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Like. All right. So then there are a couple things. Hey, did you know about this? Things you should know about. All right. So Outspoken Atheist on Damage Caused by Religion. There's a podcast with the president of the American Atheists. And I think it's with David Silverman, and it was just kind of highlight this and expounding his views. He makes a crucial point. Paradoxically, a greater tolerance for atheism would better preserve the separation of church and state, the constitutional provision that protects religious freedom by preventing one denomination from suppressing others. So yeah, that was it. It was more like to let people know. But I think that this is a really important point, that the only way you can truly have freedom of religion is to have a secular government, an entirely secular government, because that's the only way it can be fair, is if it doesn't have a position itself.
Right. I'm a little bit gobsmacked by people in the United States who are pushing for Christian privilege here, to say we are a Christian nation. We were founded by Christians who wanted to protect Christianity, and without looking around the world and realizing, man, everybody gets a shot here, and religion is probably more powerful here than in most of the rest of the world, and certainly in the Western world. And it's because we're secular, and it's not that complicated. If everything is protected, then and everybody has a shot at, equal shot, then people get to do what they want to do, and everybody thrives. It's not complicated, but we make it complicated. But especially the Dominion has scared the living daylights out of me, because they want to, I think a lot of people look at that and say, well, yeah, Christians, I want to be a Christian nation, without realizing that pretty quick you're gonna wind up being let's say a Baptist nation, and wind up, and us Episcopalians or former Episcopalians are going to be, wait a minute, this isn't such a good idea now.
I saw a great meme on Facebook that says, why do people keep saying that America is a Christian nation? Yeah, there's a lot of Christians in America, but there are also a lot of assholes, and we don't call it an asshole nation.
Well, sometimes I do.
Yes, but it kind of makes the point really well. That was
Yeah,
what people were
yeah,
saying. Is like sometimes we do call
yeah.
America the asshole nation, but and I think this is also the point to go back to that story about the UK, where the education minister is basically trying to crowd out atheism from the curriculum, as if somehow atheism itself is dangerous, or that these people who went to courts because the courts found for them clearly their rights were being violated, but it's the people who
Mhm.
went to court to fight for their rights that are the problem. I mean, is that really the kind of government that you want to have? Is that really representing the people? Is that representative democracy when you're marginalizing and demonizing part of the population, that you're violating their rights?
Nope.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was kind of a rhetorical question, not really fair, was it?
Well, since I'm here and got nothing better to do than answer rhetorical questions, there you go.
All right, so moving on. All right, this was an interesting story that I found in the Los Angeles Times. And because I do think it's a very different experience for me as an American living in Europe than I think Americans living in most parts of America. I live in a city that has a very high Turkish and Muslim population. In fact,
Mm.
one of the ways that I walk to work is to walk through the sort of Turkish quarter where like the bakeries are out and the shisha shops and
Mm.
some really great food and markets, and they've got really elaborate wedding gowns and dresses that they wear, so you get to walk past all of that, and it's really nice. And down the road from me is a kiosk run by a Turkish family, and that's I've got a couple to choose from, but that's my preferred kiosk. And then one day on my way home from work walking, the guys from the kiosk, after I'd lived here for about a year and saw them about once a week, they just happened to see me as I was walking home. They said, "Are you heading home? Because we're heading to work," and they gave me a lift home. And so
Cool.
it's, yeah, I mean, I don't know a lot of people necessarily have a lot of experience living among Muslims. Two of my colleagues are Muslims. One's quite secular, the other one's just very privately religious. And yeah, it's like there's not a problem really to have Muslims living in a secular Europe. There are obviously some people who are jerks about it and want to destroy it.
Mhm.
But I thought that this was an interesting story that I wanted to flag up, because you do have a younger generation of people, and I'll just read this. A light rain was falling as some young women, some in hip European street clothes, others in hijabs or ankle-length robes, made their way under the high, saw-toothed roof of a former train depot for the annual Muslim Fair of Brussels. This year's theme was Islam and Reforms. "Where are the women?" asked Julie, whose name I can't pronounce, as she took stock of the crowd in the fair's VIP area. At 32, her face and shining brown eyes framed a light-colored hijab, and she's a policy analyst with a progressive and anti-discrimination group that includes several prominent Muslim activists. "I've been trying to promote the inclusion of Muslims in the majority society, but I have also been saying that it's not acceptable, for example, to have so few Muslim women speaking in front of mixed Muslim crowds, both men and women. Finding that delicate balance of interest between a majority culture that has become increasingly secular and liberal and members of a religious minority who fear being forced to abandon their beliefs is the primary mission of a rising generation of Muslim activists in Europe. Young and progressive-minded, they envision a future Europe in which they can feel fully at home. But as they seek their peaceful integration of Islam into European life, they face an array of forces aligned against them." So.
Mm-hmm.
So that was another thing that if you have some time, I would highly recommend, because I think it's a good article that I guess it shows more of the life that I know in Europe.
Yeah. One of the forces arrayed against them, though, would seem to me to be the more religious Muslims.
Yes.
And that I guess the thing, I'm for religious rights, and I'm really against it when religions get too much power, because that's where the evils come from, I think. And I don't think Islam would be any better than Christianity in power anywhere. But and that's why I'm hopeful for a new generation of American Muslims, if they get accepted and aren't shunted aside and radicalized by Trump and all those folks, and why I'm hopeful that Europe will be a model for that if they can maintain this secularization and inclusion of Muslims in a secular democratic society.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's a necessity going forward. And I, like Queen Elizabeth, have no interest in making windows into men's souls. I don't want to regulate what people think or believe, as long
Right.
as basically your beliefs aren't infringing on the happiness, the welfare, the well-being, and the potential being realized in the minds of others. So, you know,
Right.
if you want to have certain views about the role of women, that's fine, but you shouldn't, if you're doing anything to stop your daughter from being educated, well, the state has an obligation to protect her rights.
Yeah.
And so you can have an opinion, you can say what you want, but to violate the laws in such a way that you're damaging her or your son in any way from fully realizing who they are, then I think that there is a state's responsibility to protect that future citizen, protect their rights as well. But you know, it doesn't mean that I don't. Yeah, we don't. As I don't think as atheists anybody wants to control what people believe religiously. They just want beliefs to be private. Just
Right.
make it
Right.
private.
Sure. Sure. Just don't don't get in power to the point where you impose things on other people that they don't accept for themselves.
Yeah.
And I, we went through so much of that in Western Europe with during the 30 Years War and the Reformation, the
Mm-hmm.
Counter-Reformation, all that kind of stuff. England was horrendous in the times of the Tudors, uh, with the Catholic oppression and the oppression of
Sure, and right the way
Anglicans by
through to,
Catholics.
yeah, like the Protestant or the Cromwells and the Glorious Revolution and all of that
Right,
stuff. You know, all
right,
of that was just, well, that's what basically what drove the founders of the United States to make
right.
it a secular state. Because
Exactly.
yeah,
And
that
it
was
and
the
it,
reason. That was a
and like
lesson that they learned from Europe,
and like I say, it works, and it's and
and
it's
then we
it's a
forgot it.
no-brainer, and we forgot it.
Yeah.
And we so as we bring people into our culture from other cultures and other religious backgrounds, we have to accept them, and we have to uh, uh, acclimate them to the ethos of the nation. And if the ethos of the nation is run by, say, in this case, the people in power are Christians, if you wound up 50 or 100 years from now with another group of people in that kind of power, looking back and saying, well, they oppressed us for this long, let's
Yeah.
let's oppress them, then you wind up with the Sunni and Shia
Wheel
kind of
just keeps
split,
turning.
where you get where people get tribal uh, and oppress people. When they have the power, they oppress people. When they don't, they rebel against that power. Our founders were geniuses, and I
Quit trying
I
to
don't.
wreck it, everyone.
Yes. Sorry, I didn't know where I was going there for a while.
Yeah, I did. All right. Oh, and that was the last one. Oh, and we were like 8 minutes away from the top of the hour. So I think that was really well timed.
Yes, cool.
Yeah. So any last
Hi.
reactions to
No, I just it was fun to be with you when you went through that, and to give my reactions as you read through them.
yes. And of course, if other people wanted to join us and we can do facepalm moments as part of the Patreon hangout in future, then all you have to do is follow the instructions, become a patron, and then join next time. I know it was New Year's Eve and kind of the time was a little bit weird. So for people who had to work today, they probably couldn't make it. But normally I do on the weekends to try to get as many people as
Yeah,
possible.
yeah, and I very much enjoy spending time with you, but it would be nice to have more people in the hangout so that we could exchange more ideas, and I wouldn't have to feel like uh,
Well, I think
my
you've been a great co-host.
well, I appreciate that. I feel vague most of the time when we're talking about this stuff. I don't feel like I'm making all that much sense. But
Oh, well, that's all right. That's just how I feel every time I got in front of the camera for the first year on YouTube.
okay, so you're saying that someday I might be a YouTube star?
There you go. Yes. You're basically, this is like your apprenticeship.
Well, glad to hear it.
Taking you through the ropes of the basics and then on your own little channel.
Yeah, and then if someday I can figure out how to actually work my camera, Although maybe it's better not. Maybe I'll make some kind of an icon to or some kind of cartoon character to be
There you
my
go. Yes,
avatar.
or a puppet. Get a puppet, and then you could be off stage and just have your puppet talk. My puppet is a bare hand, so it's not a very good puppet.
There you go. Or I could animate. I could get a cat. I could do a cat that was zapped by.
Oh, you might have some copyright problems with that.
Well,
Maybe you could be zapped through the sink by, I don't know, the sands of time. No, I don't know. Something.
zapped by Hanuman, the monkey god. I could get a. There we go. I could get a dancing monkey.
Oh, that would be good.
I could have an organ grinder and have this monkey and a little capuchin monkey and with a
Just have
tin
him
cup.
do the clips, yeah. In fact, people
It
might
would
just
be
turn the
great.
sound off and just watch the monkey for 5 minutes.
Which in my case would probably be a better use of your time. As a monkey would be very entertaining.
Well, I think what I might do, Tom, is we're like 5 minutes away from the top of the hour, but I mean, I was just going to kind of wrap it up here and chat with you a bit off air to close it off. And that way, I mean, we could just talk for the sake of it for 5 minutes, but I think maybe people would rather just watch the video and get on with their days and use this to spend their time before counting down to New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining me. Again, it was lovely and fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll do it again. And next time we'll try to do the theme song in unison. And then I'll go back and I'll record it. And then I can find a way to make that the official theme song. And I'll try to find an app where I can play the piano and do a little bit with it. And maybe that's too much work. I have too many videos to make before I do that. So, but we should definitely try to do the song in unison next time.
Okay.
All right. So if you stick around, yes,
yeah.
I'll try to remember too. So if you stick around, don't leave, and I'll say goodbye to everyone else. So hey, you guys, thanks for watching the Hangout. Hope you enjoyed it. Tom was a great co-host. If he keeps up this thing, I'm going to have to start giving him a part of the YouTube ad revenue cut. I'll send you a check for 6 cents at the end of every year for your portion. But again,
wow.
Yeah, exactly.
How will I ever spend all that?
You could get 1/4 of a stamp, perhaps. But for those of you who enjoyed this chat and would like to join us next time or in the future, then to become a patron, it's $1 a month, and it guarantees you full access to all of these hangouts. And if you can do more, obviously I'm thrilled, I'm happy, I appreciate whatever you put in my tip cup, but it's my opportunity to spend time with those who are financially supporting me, like Tom, to say thank you so much, I appreciate it, and I appreciate you also spending your time with me on this New Year's Eve. So to all of you who are watching, have a happy New Year's Eve and a happy 2016, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.